So I'm back with yet another lens review, and this time I'm looking at an anamorphic lens from Sirui. This is the Saturn 50mm, a small and compact full frame anamorphic lens with a 1.6x squeeze and a t2.9 aperture. So let's get into it. So if you aren't familiar with anamorphic lenses already, these are essentially specialty cinema lenses that project a compressed version of the image onto the camera sensor. This enables a wider range of aspect ratios along with some other interesting effects such as lens flares and oval-shaped bokeh when shot wide open. I've been looking forward to using a full-frame anamorphic lens for a very long time. Most of my favourite movies and TV shows are shot on anamorphic, so I was really excited to put the 50mm through its paces and see how the lens performs on the Lumix S5. Just like the Nightwalker lens that I recently reviewed, this is in no way going to be a technical review, more some top-line thoughts after getting to use the lens over the last few weeks. So first things first, the build quality of the lens is great. I've come to expect this from all of the Sirui products that I've used in the past. I actually thought that the Nightwalker lens rings were too loose, so I probably sound pretty entitled by this point, but I definitely think that the Saturn rings could be a little bit looser, especially on the focus ring, which is where I'm often making the most adjustments. On the positive side though, there's definitely no visible gaps in between these rings. The Nightwalker lens that I used had a sizable gap between both, which made me pretty concerned about debris getting in between the lens elements. This isn't a worry for me on the Saturn, and I haven't had any issues so far, although I've only been using the lens for a short while. Another obvious bonus here is that these lenses are full frame, which is pretty amazing. I also genuinely just think that the lens looks great. It's very compact for an anamorphic lens of this specification, and it fits nicely on the S5 without being too top heavy. I think that's where the carbon fibre construction comes in handy, keeping it pretty light at 457 grams. Definitely light enough to use on a gimbal, although I've only been using it handheld. Now onto image quality, because of course that is the most important part. The Lumix S5 has an anamorphic mode in the menu settings, which makes it really easy to get a de-squeeze preview from the lens in camera. I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying it. I think that the Lumix S5 is the best bang for your buck full frame video camera on the market right now. There's so many features packed into this full frame powerhouse, and anamorphic mode being one of them, but let's get back to the lens. The Saturn lenses have a 1.6x squeeze, which is pretty awesome. Sirui claims this makes the 50mm equate to a 31mm field of view when de-squeezed. For me, this is a pretty perfect aspect ratio for the work I like to do. It captures enough of the scene to get a lot of those establishing details into the shot, but it's not so wide that it suffers from too much distortion. There's also a 35mm and a 75mm option. Both look interesting, but the 50mm is fairly neutral, and so I'm really glad I opted for this lens. After reading a few reviews on the lens, I did expect quite a bit of pincushion distortion, but honestly I haven't found this much of an issue on the 50mm. Given that I've only been using this lens for a few weeks, I'm not sure if this is something that would become more distracting in certain situations. Only time will tell, but for now it's not something that's bothered me very much. In terms of the way the actual image renders from this lens, I really like it. It captures details nicely and the colours look really nice on the S5. Chromatic aberrations are well controlled, and although it's not the fastest lens with a maximum aperture of 2.9, I still find that I can get enough subject separation when shooting wide open. Having said that, it would be really nice to have at least an extra stop of light for those situations where it's a little bit darker, but given that this is a full frame anamorphic lens with such a compact design, I can't really complain. If I was to make any kind of observation about the look from this lens in general, it would be that it is quite clean. I don't think that that's either a positive or a negative, more just a matter of taste. If you're looking for a balanced anamorphic lens that you can use on a full frame sensor, this is a great option, but if you're looking for that sort of vintage anamorphic look with crazy oval bokeh that wraps around your subject, you might want to look at some other options. Out of the box, the log image looks pretty clinical. I have found myself playing around with the grade a little bit more than I would with some other lenses that I use, but I'm still really happy with the way my end image looks. It just took me a little while longer to take that digital edge off, which is something I haven't struggled with on the Nightwalker lens that I reviewed recently. The one drawback that I have experienced with this lens is the minimum focus distance. Unfortunately, it is pretty limited at 0.9 meters. Whilst I didn't think this would initially be an issue, I have found myself having to back up quite a bit in certain situations to attain focus, and it just means it's something that you've got to almost constantly be mindful of when shooting in full frame. So all in all, I do really like the Saturn lens. It's a solidly built anamorphic lens that produces a really clean image and has some of those key features which you come to expect from an anamorphic lens. It's small and compact despite being full frame, and the 1.6x squeeze produces a really lovely looking image that can easily be converted into super wide aspect ratios which look really cinematic. The limited close focus is a bit of a drawback for me, but I have heard that this can be managed effectively using diopters, so maybe that's something I'll look into down the line. Hopefully this video was useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.